with a chance to tie inside. Zion Williamson! Season-high 38 Williamson driving inside. You thought you saw him grimacing and in pain.
Well, he's headed to the locker room. We don't know the extent of the injury.
Oh, no! We suck again!
Many months later.
We've got breaking news out of the NBA. Pelicans star Zion Williamson will make his return tonight against the Timberwolves.
Now for DeJounte, and almost taken away. It is taken away. Showtime.
The next day.
Meanwhile, New Orleans, Zion Williamson in a familiar spot on the bench in street clothes.
You can't keep getting away with it!
What happens when a generational talent becomes basketball's biggest what if? In the high-stakes world of the NBA, few stories are as frustrating yet captivating as Zion Williamson's saga with the New Orleans Pelicans. Picture this: a 284-pound athlete who moves like a guard, jumps like a superhero, and has the potential to revolutionize basketball. But there's a catch: he's barely on the court. The story begins with a familiar scene. Just 3 seconds left, Zion drives to the basket with his trademark explosiveness. But wait, something's wrong. The cameras catch him grimacing, clutching at his body. As he limps toward the locker room, Pelicans fans feel that all-too-familiar sinking feeling in their stomachs. You can almost hear the collective sigh across New Orleans. Oh no, we suck again. Months pass, and like a predictable TV show rerun, the cycle continues. Breaking news flashes across screens. Zion Williamson set to return against the Timberwolves. The excitement builds, hope returns. But if you've been following this story, you know what comes next. The very next game? There he is, back in street clothes, watching from the bench. You might be wondering, how does someone with supernatural talent keep ending up here? The truth is painful for NBA fans. Zion Williamson, arguably the most electrifying player since LeBron James, can't seem to stay healthy. Whether it's conditioning issues, lingering injuries, or what some critics call a lack of commitment, basketball's human highlight reel spends more time in designer suits than in his Pelicans jersey. As we look ahead to 2025, Zion has finally made his return debut. But let's be honest, how many of us are holding our breath, wondering not if, but when the next setback will come? Think about it. When was the last time you saw Zion dominate a game for more than a few weeks straight? The answer might surprise you, but here's where things get even more frustrating for Pelicans fans. Remember that return we talked about? Well, buckle up, because this roller coaster ride was just getting started. After his comeback, Zion managed to play, wait for it, just a handful of games before sitting out 27 straight matches with a hamstring injury. And if you're thinking, that sounds familiar, you're right. It was the same injury that sidelined him against the Lakers last season. At this point, even the most diehard Pelicans fans were pulling their hair out. Now, let's talk about his actual return game against the Timberwolves. For a moment, just a brief moment, we saw flashes of the old Zion, the explosive, dominant force that made us all believers. But here's the kicker. Want to guess what happened the very next night? In true Pelicans fashion, Zion sat out the back-to-back game. Sure, the team wants to be careful with their star player, treating him with kid gloves. But here's a reality check. Zion is approaching 25, in his 6th NBA season. Can you believe that? At what point do we take off the training wheels? It's gotten so absurd that, and I'm not making this up, the man practically needs rest days for his rest days. But let's dig deeper into why this matters so much. Think about team chemistry for a second. How can you build a championship contender when your young superstar is a part-time player? It's like trying to build a house with your foundation showing up only every other week. The Pelicans did try to shake things up by trading for DeJounte Murray, a move that had fans dreaming of an explosive duo. But guess what? In a twist that you couldn't script better for a tragedy, they played exactly one game together. One. When Murray made his Pelicans debut in the season opener, where was Zion? You guessed it, street clothes. Then Murray missed the next 16 games and the dream duo remained just that, a dream. Fast forward to the halfway point of the NBA season, and these two finally shared the court in Minnesota. But by then, one had to wonder, was it too little, too late? But here's where the numbers get truly mind-boggling. Ever wondered what $250 million of basketball talent looks like sitting on the bench? Because that's essentially what the Pelicans are dealing with. Zion and Murray are collecting paychecks that would make Wall Street executives blush, yet they're playing in fewer games than some part-time G League players. And just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, let's talk about the Pelicans' potential Big Three. Zion, Murray, and Brandon Ingram, a trio that should keep Western Conference coaches up at night. On paper, it's the kind of lineup that makes basketball purists drool. The reality? They've played exactly 0 games together. That's right, 0. Why? Because Brandon Ingram decided to join the unavailable club with a 14-game absence of his own. You know how people talk about the infamous Clippers curse? Well, the Pelicans might have something even more sinister going on. We're talking voodoo-level misfortune here. Is it something in the New Orleans water, the famous Cajun cuisine, the humidity? Whatever it is, it's turning what should be one of the NBA's most exciting young teams into a perpetual what could have been story. But here's the silver lining in this dark cloud: Willie Green. Remember this name because what this coach has accomplished might be one of the most underappreciated stories in the NBA. Picture this. You're hired to coach a team built around a generational talent, but that talent doesn't play a single game in your first full season. Most coaches would be updating their resumes, right? Instead, Green has managed to keep the Pelicans competitive, hovering around .500 with 134 wins over 4 years. And he's doing it with lineups that sometimes look more like a summer league roster than an NBA team. We're talking about role players even die-hard NBA fans might struggle to name. Think about this. While other coaches are running plays for all-stars, Green is out here making playoff pushes with what sometimes amounts to a G League squad plus a few veterans. In any other sport, in any other situation, a coach with a sub.500 record and no playoff series wins might be job hunting. But context is everything, isn't it? Ever watched a poorly choreographed wrestling tag team match? Because that's exactly what the Zion Ingram partnership has become. One enters, plays a handful of games, gets injured, tags out, and then the other one steps in. Rinse and repeat. It's like they're playing a bizarre game of basketball hot potato, except nobody's winning. Here's a stat that'll make your jaw drop. Out of a possible 284 games these two could have played together, want to guess how many they actually shared the court? A measly 73. That's right, just 25.7%. Let that sink in. You could have watched every episode of Friends twice in the time these two were supposed to be building chemistry on the court. Let's break it down year by year. 2022, 0 games, yep, 0. 2023, 12 games, barely a month. 2024, 55 games, their healthy year. 2025, only 6 games so far. But wait, it gets better, or worse, depending on how you look at it. In 4 consecutive years, they haven't managed to string together more than 12 games in a row. 12. Some teams go on longer winning streaks than these two can stay healthy together. You know what's truly heartbreaking? Every time Zion does something spectacular, like that rim-rattling dunk against the Timberwolves that made ESPN's top 10, you can't even fully enjoy it. Instead, you're sitting there like a nervous parent, counting down the days until the next injury report. 1 week? 2 weeks? It's become the NBA's most depressing countdown game. And here's the scariest part. Zion is only 24 years old. Think about that for a second. This should be his physical prime, the years when he's destroying rims and defenders with reckless abandon. Instead, we're all wondering if he's already peaked. If staying healthy is this challenging now, what happens when Father Time starts calling? Is Zion Williamson destined to join the What If Hall of Fame alongside other injury-plagued superstars? But perhaps the most sobering reality check comes when we look at Zion's peers. Remember the 2018 draft class? While Zion was watching games from the sideline, Luka Doncic was making NBA Finals appearances and collecting All-NBA first-team honors like they were trading cards. SGA emerged as an MVP candidate, Jalen Brunson became a playoff hero, and Trae Young led the league in assists. All these players, drafted just 1 year before Zion, have left him in their wake. Want to hear something even more eye-opening? In his own draft class, Zion ranks 26th out of 30 first-round picks in games played. Let that sink in. He's behind players like Ty Jerome, and if you're asking who, that's exactly the point. Meanwhile, Ja Morant, picked right after Zion, has racked up playoff appearances and victories while Zion hasn't played a single postseason minute. The list of players who've surpassed him keeps growing. Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum, even younger stars like Cade Cunningham are now generating more excitement and showing more promise. Remember when everyone called Zion the next face of the NBA? That torch has already been passed to Victor Wembanyama, while Zion's highlight reel remains stuck in perpetual preview mode. Looking at those explosive dunks and powerful drives to the basket, you can't help but wonder, how many more times will we see these flashes of brilliance before the next injury report? If we're being realistic, and history has taught us to be, we might see him in action for maybe 25 games this season. Hoping for 30? That might be pushing our luck. As basketball fans, we're left with a bittersweet taste. Zion Williamson represents one of the NBA's greatest what-if stories still in progress. While we hope for the best, experience has taught us to expect the worst. It's like watching a shooting star, brilliant but fleeting. If you've enjoyed diving deep into this analysis of one of basketball's most intriguing stories, don't forget to hit that like button. Want to stay updated on more NBA stories and analysis like this? Make sure you're subscribed, because just like Zion's next comeback, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Until next time, keep watching, keep hoping, and keep believing in the game we love.